Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, for me, as one human being on this extraordinary planet, it's tricky business for us. It's tricky business, generally speaking, I think, to have a human body, and it's especially tricky in these times of enormous change, which have been coming and ebbing and flowing, probably for hundreds of years and centuries. But we are in this time, and we are in the now, and whenever you're watching the show, you are in a human body, and you have to deal with and understand and experience the nature of what it is to be a human in a human body. And in essence, we have choices, and in essence, we have realizations, and in essence, we have experiences that we can have in this human body that change the way we approach being in a human body, being a human being on this planet at this time and at any time. Because throughout history, there have been people in all countries, in all religions, in all ways of being, all ages and sizes, who've had an experience of something that changed their way of experiencing themselves as human beings. And whether those people were known, like the Jesuses, the Krishnas, the Buddhas, the Muhammads, or whether they were unknown and were in a cave or in a store or in a bodega or in a house, anywhere on the planet, that experience was available and is available now even more so. And that's the experience of unconditional love. That's the experience of the infinite. That's the experience of inclusion, that universal all-inclusiveness. That, what we call dedicated to the oneness. That experience is here for us for the taking, in a sense. In the context of the busyness of this world, the business of this world, the seeming conflicts in this world, that there is a root, there is a heart, there is a love that is infinite, that is inclusive, that is unconditional, and it is ours. Each and every one of us, it is ours. It is our birthright, it is our nature, it is our destiny, it is who we are. And that's why when the people like the ones we know of, the Jesus and Krishnas and the Buddhas, when they had that experience in one form, in one way, in one expression or another. They said, the goddess and I, the Father and I are one. There is a oneness, and no one and everything is part of that one. And now is our time in these human bodies, in this time on earth, this extraordinary floating paradise, in a sense, hurtling through space, unreasonable. It's our time. And, we have this expression around here, and the expression is, whatever you think you are, you're more. And so whatever you're identifying with now, if it isn't that Father and I, Goddess and I are one, the infinite, the inclusive, you're more. You're more than your country, you're more than your religion, you're more than your family, you're more than your sexual preference. Whatever you identify, whatever you think your position is, your job is, your relationship to yourself and your family and your earth and your community and your country and your religion and your state and blah, 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 you're more. Because we are all that oneness. We are all that Goddess and I, Father and I are one. And so that is our gift now. That is our blessing. And as we come into that more and more, and more of us have that realization, that epiphany, that recognition, then this planet will change. This planet will go into that experience where people are having an experience of love and cooperation and collaboration and creativity. And that's what's coming, and that's what's here. And so we're extraordinarily fortunate, again, to be here and to be experiencing this show together, and to be able to meet and experience the guests we have tonight. Laurianne David is an extraordinary artist. She's a farmer, an adventurer, a healer. She's an inspirational muse. I mean, she's one of, there are extraordinary beings on this planet, but she is a Renaissance woman in the true sense of the word. She's a former competitive athlete, a scientist. She's the founder of a sacred space, a retreat and healing facility. She has her own design studio. She produces these extraordinary, giant mosaic art. And she's part of the International Healing Art Project that I've talked about, with this piece that really, we'll see videos of it. We'll see Laurianne talking about it. We'll see photos of it, called Hands of Light, Hands of Peace. Unbelievable, an unbelievable expression of that commitment to love, of that experience of love, of that experience of the oneness. And we have another video of Laurianne's of about other of these four extraordinary mosaic pieces she's done. At the Santa Barbara, the new Santa Barbara airport, she did this extraordinary piece for the Chumash Indians, for this just extraordinary pieces, really. And we'll see videos of that, and we'll also see photos of that. So this is a real experience and a real opportunity for us to be with somebody who's dedicated their lives to creativity and love and the expression of that in literally many, many, many forms. And, as most of you know, that we'll also be talking about the Bridging International Healing Art Project, which came as a dream, it came as a vision, as a healing, as an acupuncture for the planet. That anybody who produces a new original piece, any size, any format, any medium, from the most experienced, professional, extraordinary artists, known artists who do that for a living, and 3-year-olds or people who just pick up sharpening markers because their intention is to be part of that healing and part of that creativity and part of that acupuncture for the planet, that will use this form of bridging and show it and have it available all over the world on YouTube and Vimeo and this beautiful International Healing Art Project website, heaven-to-earth-art.com, heaven-to-earth-art.com. And anybody who wants to be part of it, please join us. The more people involved, the better the healing, the better the acupuncture. And if you go to the website, heaven-to-earth-art.com, and go through page after page of this art that came in from all over the world, from people the ages of 3 to 93, extraordinarily famous and renowned artists, to 3-year-olds. It'll blow your mind, really. And we have probably over 325 pieces now that have come in, and probably a commitment from people who are intending to do it, just haven't done it yet, of another 300. And it's just building momentum, because people want to be part of that coming together. People want to become part of that new paradigm, that coming home, that expression of love, that creativity, that Goddess and I, Father and I are one. And to play together in that joy, in that love, in that creativity. So join me in a short meditation, then we'll have the first Laurianne video of Hands of Light, Hands of Peace. Then Laurianne will be with us, and beautiful pictures of her extraordinary art, and an opportunity for us all to come together and just experience that love together. So join me in a short meditation. Okay, so the first video, as I said a little earlier, this is from Laurianne David, and she talks about and shows you the immensity and the beauty of Hands of Light, Hands of Peace. Enjoy.
Hello there, my name is Laurianne David, and I'm standing on one of my latest sculptures entitled Hands of Light, Hands of Peace. This was one of those amazing things that artists go through when they just know they have to create something. I was with a friend and we were looking at my hands, and we were talking about all the things that I have done in my life, from the arts to athletics, family, other interests, and she said, "Your hands know so much. All hands of all people know so much." And it got me to thinking about what I wanted to create next. This was a multi-year project. I worked on it on and off over probably 3 or 4 years. This visionary manifestation really was a deep call within myself to express all that I am as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, as a lover, as a warrior, as a teacher, as a healer, as all things that are inside of me. Part of the reason why I added different colors of grout on these amazing flat river rocks was to symbolize all the cultures of the world, because it's really not just my hands or women's hands, it's really all people's hands, that somehow together we have to create light in our world, and we must create peace no matter what. The idea behind the hands came from the work that I do with Topiary. I've been welding for over 35 years. The inside is a big steel structure. It's ferro-cement on the outside, a type of concrete. Over that are the stones, and then the hand-cut glass mosaic, which is grouted with an outdoor waterproof epoxy. As I created these, and as I worked on these, kind of praying and visioning, it really came to me that it was important to have these go to an art institution or even a healing center, so that their energy of what they create can really move out into the world. They weigh about almost a half ton each, and as you can see, I'm 5'6", so they're really big. One of the other amazing things about them is that in the moonlight or even during the day, they have an incredible reflective quality. I've slept in them, I've sat in them, I've prayed in them. We've used them as a backdrop for theater, and they're just very special to me. Thank you for watching Bridging Heaven and Earth today, and thank you for hearing more about me, Laurianne David, and my art.
Hi everybody, welcome back. So hands of light, hands of peace, pretty amazing. They are an amazing piece of manifestation of love. Why don't you talk about, how your art fits in with, your feeling of service and serving the love and serving oneness and truth. Why don't you talk about how that's, moved you in your life?
Alan, thank you. I will. What's really interesting about this is being an artist who's worked in a lot of different mediums, especially in welding with the Topiary and like that. A client will come to me and ask me to make a commission and do this or do that, and I do it. But when this idea of, the hands came into being, as I started working with it and working on them, it was clear that this piece was going to be completely different from a lot of other things that I had done. It wasn't a commission for anyone or for any specific place. It didn't have a purpose or a point, yet it was everything, and it was all about the one. And I can't even tell you really what went on when I started thinking of the hands and this sleeping and dreaming platform and started welding, and then I didn't really know what I was going to do. I knew I was going to do the ferro-cement, and it was clear that the palms had to be reflective. They had to reflect the sun and the cosmos and the universe and all the angel energy and everything that was up there somewhere, the moon. And then the mosaic stones went on, and then it was just apparent that it had to be rainbow colors or colors of the world, color of the cultures, and it had to be all about all of us and everything and the one. And so when they were finished, they're at my studio. You might remember that the Hejecito fire wiped out everything, my whole life, my history, my home, my everything. And the hands and my other sculptures were all completely fine. The fire surrounded everything, and they were still there. In fact, there's an amazing photo that the fire department has of fire trucks and water and fire, and the hands are just glowing. Wow. And it was clear to me that as my kids now are off to college and all of that, that a lot of my artwork, particularly these kind of as the beginning, is about service. And since the fire, all I've done is cut stuff apart and put it back together again. And this is just one more manifestation of that I think as we work in the world and we are the change, that everything that we do is a vision and a prayer and a hope in peace, in the light of one. And I don't know, I just get enormous amount of energy from that.
Wow, I really said it all. Yeah, no, I mean, you could really feel that. I mean,
yeah.
And did you have that kind of background growing up, that, some feeling of destiny, of creativity and service coming together? Why don't you talk about that?
My nickname from the time that I was small was The Happening. And when I was working on this chapter in the book that I'm working on called Divine Balance, Mastering the Divine Feminine, divine feminine, divine masculine within each of us, we have to step into balance. Because I think that we are born whole, we're both parts, and the world tears us apart. Women are supposed to do this, men are supposed to do that, your mother this, your father that, we get...
Yeah, defined roles.
Right, broken and split. And so, yeah, I'm really fortunate to have been born, who I was, where I was, just very middle-class family. But my whole family lineage is in the Renaissance arts. And I got to be part of all of that shoemaking and costume making and growing food, and everyone made everything and everyone did everything. And
Where'd you grow up?
Northwest New Jersey,
wow.
On the East Coast, Sicilian and English family. And, I was an athlete and, had this idea that I wanted to do something in service to the world, and I wasn't sure if I was going to feed the world with algae, which I started doing and then went into traditional and organic farming. But there was always the art component in creating things of beauty that brought joy to people in different ways. And then through that, with the farming and the art, then came, of course, the healing. And somehow I've been able to keep them all flowing together, to be present with each thing and give my good work out into the light.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot that, service is so important now, because there's so much change in the world, and the waves are they're rocking. I mean, there's so much activity in the world that for us to be involved in things that we really feel our destiny and our service is such an important thing. Why don't you talk a little about how you feel, blessed to be part of, doing that all the time?
Yeah. Have you guys heard about this new film that just came out called Thrive? Mm-hmm. A lot of it has, as well as you know, we were part of the original seed group with Barbara Marx Hubbard when we helped start, found the Foundation for Conscious Evolution and all of that many years ago. And I think that synthesis of putting together all the great sectors of the wheel, we know so clearly what doesn't work. It's just, we can't do anything else in our world today except be strong and be completely present for that which is. And so it's our duty, I believe, all of us, to be strong in our relationships, in our communication, in our language, in what we manifest, that it has to be with integrity and discernment. And I feel like if we're all awake, we can't go back to sleep. We just can't. And I feel like everything that I'm able to do with my art or with my children or with my teaching, with my writing, even with the wonderful playthings I get to do, like fly my airplane, which is a grace. I feel like it has to be done consciously and with purpose.
And so you're seeing that is really the way the new paradigms will get formed, even though we don't know exactly how they're going to form. Why don't you talk about like new paradigms and things like that?
Well, I think we're all very extremely intuitive. I know that for myself. I just really try to pay attention and listen closely every day, because we have choice, right? At every turn, at every juncture, at every moment, whether it has to do with the glass or the door or the box or even the small things, because it really is just all small stuff, right?
Yeah, it's breath by breath.
Breath by breath. And I think that the things that we know don't work, if you're really called to, say, for example, go, wow, my father taught me to put my money in a bank, only spend what I had made, not to borrow. That's great. But if you're starting to read and explore and learn more about, let's just say, banking, and you really feel moved to not support the old way of banking, then that call is it. And you can't go and do it the old way anymore. You have to make a choice. What is the choice? Do I get a safe? Do I bury it? Do I join a credit union? Do I do something else? But if you know that the way it was doesn't work, you can't stay with that. You've got to go in another direction. And maybe we form new directions together, as we are in all the sectors of the wheel, whether it's in religion or art or education or science or transportation or whatever it is. We have to do it differently.
And why don't you talk a little more about, male and female energies and coming together and being, more balanced and more harmonious, and how you see that, happening, and in what ways are supportive of that?
I think, and pretty much know, having raised two amazing children, that when kids are born, they don't know. I mean, a little girl child knows she's a girl. She might have a predisposition to this or that, and a little boy child might have a predisposition to this or that. But they're free, they're explorative, they're inquisitive, they're genuine, they're vulnerable, they're soft, they're strong, they're all those things. But I think our world pulls us into roles that we then limit ourselves, and we constrict, and we limit and constrict, instead of expanding and rising and expanding and rising. And I think only after we're adults and we've had relationships or married or had children do we actually then go, wow, this isn't working for me. This was what someone else's expectation was for me, or this is what culture has sort of formed into my role, or this is what my family has said. And I think that it's the brave person that can say, wow, I like doing this, but I don't want to have to do this, and I would like to communicate that this isn't working for me, and I would like to do it a different way, and I want to engage with you to be present and talk about this. And I think that women are women and men are men, and that's a beautiful thing, because we love that sacred union that comes with that between us. Yet at the same time, men can be soft and vulnerable and graceful. Nurturing. And yet they can still be strong and powerful.
And the way you describe that, a woman could certainly be all of those.
Exactly. And we have to have that balance with each other and within ourselves. We all have to be all, if we are going to all be the one, which we all are. And I think that we know where we could be stronger in our thoughts or in our presence with things. We know where we could be softer and more graceful and more vulnerable. And I think that all men and women have almost a duty in our new forming world to be balanced, to be whole, again, moving toward the one.
And so when you have this sacred spaces, retreat and healing center, I mean, what modalities do you use and feel are, helpful in moving people into those experiences of the oneness and the harmony and the balance?
Well, we all have the most amazing transformational tool at our fingertips, literally in every moment, and that's our breath. Our breath is the pump of the organ. It is that thing which we can take our selves into a deep state. We can breath our fire energy and create incredible energy within ourselves, but that's probably the most amazing tool we all have. So I'm a longtime student of yoga, and I'm so grateful to my, college gymnastic coach, as I went to USC on a full gymnastic scholarship, for teaching us yoga in 1974.
Wow,
I mean,
ahead of their time,
right at the beginning of that, wow. Bringing that, Eastern energy into this field. And I think that was one of the most powerful things for me as an athlete, to learn that I can control everything in my mind with my visioning and sort of watching things go through, and then controlling my energy with my breath. And so being a longtime student of yoga and practitioner and teacher, that for me is probably the number one tool we all have for us to drop in and to use our breath to transform anything we want to do. And for me, alongside of that then is the water work. For 21 years now, I've been a aquatic therapy practitioner in Watsu and Wassertanzen.
Yeah, Harold Dull, the founder, was
Yes.
a guest on the show
Yes.
back in the day.
Yeah, he was one of
man.
my teachers a long
Yeah,
time
lovely
ago.
man.
So the first thing I did when I bought my land was build an amazing aquatic therapy pool, which is on solar. And that modality for me, because I have such off-the-charts high energy, I have to really focus and channel my energy, which is kind of why I get a lot of stuff done, because I just manifest a lot. And so between the yoga and the water, those are two modalities I really believe in for people that are transformational, along with, great diet, exercise, being in nature.
The standard.
All the
right.
standard good things.
And do you do meditation as well?
Yeah, I meditate every day within my yoga practice. But I'm finding more and more as I get a little older that I definitely can drop in anytime and be quiet. That's, new for me. Because I have
Yeah,
a
it's
lot.
right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's just, a little bit of focus.
Yeah.
And so in this sacred space, I mean, when people come, do you take them on do they stay for a day, a week, or can they choose, and how do you work that?
Yeah. Well, right now, I'm not doing it the way I did it in the past, right? Because the facility was lost in the fire, and I rebuilt my art studio, and the grounds are there, which I'm restoring, and the organic orchards are gone, but I'm working on those. And so I've actually done 2 retreats at someone else's facility. But how it had been patterned in the past was for people to come to, maybe they just wanted 3 days of quiet, but they maybe wanted to drop in and see an acupuncturist or a chiropractor and do some watsu and do some yoga. And so I would facilitate the parts that I had a deep knowledge and understanding of, and then I would bring in, or they would go to other healers who maybe had those modalities that suited them for where they were needing to be with healing at that time. I don't know what the vision of Sacred Space is going to hold in the future, and it may still be here, it may be somewhere else, but at this time I'm just doing some private yoga classes and still doing watsu in the pool for clients.
Wow. And where do you see us as a species and us, I guess us as a species, us as human beings, moving in this way and coming into our harmony? How do you see that happening and going and all that?
I'm glad that I had a conversation with a friend just the other day, because I can answer that, and I might not have been able to answer that, but I'll say this. So we all love flowers, right? Flowers are amazing. Our culture teaches us that, we're all the flower. We're beautiful and we're amazing and we're vibrant and have this to be that and have this to be that. But a flower is only as good as that little tiny seed that is dormant and cold, laying in the ground, and it takes the water and it takes the sun to grow up and push out and have 2 leaves and 4 leaves and then have a stem and then have a bud. And then finally this flower thing opens, right? Well, that's not it. That's not everything. What it is the beginning of that cycle of then it moving toward, co-creation, and the ovary and the pistil and the stamen and the pollen, and suddenly we have seeds, the flower's gone. And within that is this amazing regenerative thing where these seeds are now dispersed everywhere, and the plant dies and it's gone, and it starts all over again. So we have to kind of be like that. It's just this giant circle of inclusiveness that just keeps going around, and you get to be every part, if you're lucky, in a lifetime of the whole cycle, and it just keeps going, it just keeps going. And we're on some part of it, and culture will do its thing, and it'll rise again, and it'll fall, and it'll rise again, and it'll fall, and it's just going to go over and over and over again, and that's all there is. I think,
Wow.
I think we're kind of like that. And I think that, you know, we'll have our moments of shining beauty and glory, and in the meantime, if we're lucky, we'll get to put our seeds everywhere and have new things come up and be born and grow and show their glory and keep going round and around that giant circle.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So I think maybe what we'll do now is show the second video where you show the different mosaic pieces.
Yeah,
Why don't
there's a
you,
few
you know,
of them.
introduce people to that, talk about, you know, what's in that, the 4 pieces.
Let's see, in that second video is the Chumash mosaic, which was, oh my gosh, right after the fire. We had started it, it had been destroyed, and we started it again. But I think the glory in that was that all the Chumash of the South Coast came together, and they had never agreed on their history before, ever. And so they came together to create this amazing design, and they participated in making it, and it was installed at Sioctun, the original site at Cabrillo Boulevard there near the beach. And that was an amazing, amazing process. And I was fortunate to be involved in the blanket ceremony, which is revered and made part of the tribe, basically, which was incredible. And then the airport mosaic, which is there, which was just an amazing collaboration. Vidya Gauchi and I did the designs for the beam stenciling and the mosaic. She stenciled the beams, I made the mosaic, because we wanted them to kind of go together in the new Spanish Colonial Revival building. And that, again, was just a labor of love. There's over 600,000 pieces. The biggest tile in there is less than an inch square, and I could only use a certain type of tile because it was a LEED certified project, so they had to be recycled component to the tile. And so I just spent over a year, almost a year and a half, between fabricating it and installing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think the other one was the steelhead trout.
Oh yeah, the steelhead trout. That was really fun. He's fun. Mr. Determined Journey. Yeah, he's cool. That's Italian mosaic glass, and that was done for the Watershed Resources Project, which was part of the County of Santa Barbara, and the Community Environmental Council gave different artists these fiberglass forms, and we had to create these exquisite depiction of the steelhead trout and talk about their journey and how important it is to save our waters.
And also, yeah, I wanted you to say, because I don't think I mentioned, this was done by your daughter, and she shot it and edited it, right?
Yeah, my daughter Caroline is an amazing little graphic designer, filmmaker, artist.
Good, okay, so there it is. It's a beautiful, beautiful video. Just settle in, enjoy.
I'm taking you on a tour today of one of my latest projects, a 20-foot diameter mosaic located in the rotunda at the new Santa Barbara Airport Terminal building, which was just completed in June of this year. The 20-foot diameter mosaic has over 600,000 pieces of hand-cut tile. This design was a collaboration between an artist, Vidya Gauchi, and myself, who won the competition for both the beam stenciling and the mosaic. Vidya has stenciled the entry beams, and I made this mosaic located in the rotunda at one of the main entrances. The design was based on what is emotionally Santa Barbara. The graphic illusion border sits outside with an impressionistic landscape on the inside and many arches including trees and flowers. On the innermost circle are quite a number of flowers and plants that are quintessentially Santa Barbara. We're now looking at the jasmine, the opuntia cactus, a rose, the jacaranda tree. On the other side, there's lupin and California poppy. Here we have the bougainvillea, the Canary Island palm. There's also on the other side of the mosaic the California coast live oak, the yellow hibiscus, olive tree, bird of paradise, citrus, both orange and lemon, the native Matilaha poppy, and one of the many varieties of eucalyptus. The landscape is very impressionistic. It graphically depicts our exact location in that spot. Looking to the south, we have our beautiful Channel Islands. We show the beautiful Pacific Ocean as well as the cliffs. And then moving inland, which you'll see in a moment, are amazingly rich mountains and also our agricultural valleys. There's a sunset, there's a depiction of water in the hills, both from our, in the distance, Lake Kachuma, and some rivers. I created Determined Journey as a response to a call for competition that was sponsored by the Watershed Resource Center, which is a part of the Community Environmental Council, CEC, and the County of Santa Barbara. This steelhead trout is a magnificent fish. He's about 7 feet long, 3 feet high, and about 2 feet wide. Many artists were given a fiberglass form and said, create, explore, educate, tell people why the journey of the steelhead trout is so important today. It's really about raising awareness for our waters, where our water comes from and the life that it holds. This is made out of Italian glass mosaic, and this is now outside of the CEC offices and Hutton Foundation on Anapamu Street in Santa Barbara. And I'm happy to help raise awareness for this amazing fish and its journey. We're now on Cabrillo Boulevard, near the beach in Santa Barbara, the location of Seamstresses, one of the oldest Chumash villages. What you see before us is an incredible collaboration in design, in history, in the mind of the past, of the present, and into the future. 5 different groups of local Chumash came together to agree on their history, and thus this amazing mosaic was born in collaboration with me, Laurianne David. The mosaic represented a piece of art to be placed in a public area of the newly developed sidewalks along Cabrillo Boulevard. It was born out of very sad and beautiful circumstances. 2 members of our team lost their homes in the Jesucita fire. We started it, it was lost, and we began again. It was an incredible journey and process of many hands working together to not only come up with the design, but to put it together and to install it. I was happy to be part of this core team and of the larger Chumash community. It was a really amazing and rich experience. The Santa Barbara Chumash have put together an incredible podcast to tell their story. It can be accessed on the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum website under the Seamstresses Story Circle. It tells of the ancient past, of the beginnings of the Chumash people, of the islands, of their abundance with nature and the ocean, of their interaction with the local early settlers of Santa Barbara, and then the deep, dark times when the history of the Tamal went to sleep. The mosaic then tells the story of the tradition of the Tamal bringing the people back to life, remembering their old and ancient ways and bringing them into the future for all to remember.
Hi everybody, welcome back. So those are some beautiful mosaic pieces, would you say? So yeah, they just saw the video that what you described earlier with the 4 pieces, the lovely pieces. So we were talking at the break that, you know, and I mentioned the opening, the Renaissance woman, and you've had an extraordinarily eclectic life and career. Why don't you talk to people about that and getting a feel for, you know, how you came to be?
The quick short story. I grew up on the East Coast. My mother's Sicilian, my father's American English. And I was one of those crazy, wild, little energetic kids who luckily started my focus into dancing and gymnastics. I went to college on a full gymnastics scholarship, full scholarship to USC.
From the East Coast?
From the East Coast, right. Yeah, one-way ticket. My dad said, one-way ticket, you're out of here. That's all we can afford. And I taught in the summers. I was hired by National Cheerleaders Association, and I taught cheerleading clinics at camps and colleges all over the United States.
Wow.
And gymnastics and double stunts. And then I got injured really badly at World Games in Mexico City, and I was working in the herbarium because I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I was doing all these things. Transferred to UC Santa Barbara so I could continue my marine biology studies, but I wasn't done with competitive athletics at all. So I started rowing, and our women's rowing team went to nationals, and then I got asked to try out for the 1980 women's Olympic rowing team, but I didn't make the team. And I then moved to the Pacific Northwest to go to the University of Washington and go to the Friday Harbor Marine Labs and still try to work out this thing I wanted to work out with feeding the world with algae. And in the process, I kept kayaking and rowing and started an organic farm with some individuals, and then a traditional big farm, cattle, hay, grain crops, all that, and food. And it was just the most amazing, rich life. And I started welding and doing my art, and got very interested still in yoga and healing. And then when I moved, I'm kind of cutting out a whole lot because there's a lot, moved back down to Santa Barbara, I realized that this is where I wanted to be and, have a family and start my own little farm here and do my art in a big way with my company. And through all those years, I kept flying. I mean, aviation is definitely my passion. I've worked in it commercially for a little while. I flew cargo for a while, flew in Alaska a little bit. And I've just been able to keep layering and layering like a shallot, right? Just all these amazing little layers that go together, and do my work in the world and my art and my family.
Wow.
Lots of crazy stuff.
Yeah, we were talking at the break that a lot of people now have tremendously eclectic skills and are bringing them all into this point now to really serve the transformation and new paradigms, the love. Why don't you talk to that? Because you must know a lot of people.
I do, and I think that is, to me, what is so juicy, because we're all talented. We all have skills. You'll say to someone, someone years ago taught me, never really to ask someone, what do you do, right? It's a more interesting thing to say, what's working you? What's working you today? And you go,
how do you spend your time?
Right, or whatever it is.
What's your passion?
And you find that people will take maybe their art history background and their education background and their love for using scissors and, create art and teach or whatever it is, whether it's food, or maybe they were a fiber artist and now they're doing beautiful organic food for presentations, or I can think of so many individuals and friends that I know who have so many skills and talents and are combining them, as you say, to do their best work in the world, that really what we're all here for is to inspire each other, and I think to work with each other in some sort of healing, whether it's absolutely specific, like, I broke my arm and I'm helping you heal your arm, but it's not just your arm that you broke, it's your muscles and your energy and how did it affect this part of your body, or whatever it is. But I think those two things, that's why we're just able to meld everything all together.
Yeah, and even more so energetically to unrelentingly put out the energy of healing the heart, that disconnected heart.
Huge. Yeah, so huge. I think that we all wake up at some point in our lives, hopefully earlier than later, but I think it does happen for all human beings at some point before they go through their, coming into being and then leaving in the form that we're in. I think that our heart is something that we all struggle with a lot, and when we realize it's really to be this amazing open thing that just receives and gives and receives and gives, just like it pumps through energy through our body, I think that is really where people have their awakening. I mean, you talk about the Eastern, Kundalini energy or awakening or whatever it is. I don't really think awakenings happen in your mind. I think they happen in your heart. I think it's this pituitary pineal gland combination thing that something just happens and it's like an aha, big aha.
Yeah, I think that, until you come into your life's work and your life's destiny, it just feels like, you're involved in busyness.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really, you're not passionate like you were saying.
Yeah. And I think that it's almost our obligation as present human beings in the world. I think that's where my joy has come from in everything I've done. I think I mentioned, I'm not sure if I did or not, but my grandfather, my mother's father, was an amazing shoemaker, and I was trained to make shoes at a young age, and my grandmother was an amazing costume maker, and I always sew and make costumes or jewelry or whatever. And I've always taught what I know. And I think that's one of my joys. Like if I have this knowledge, I want to teach it to someone. Someone comes along and they want to know all this, and we pass it on to them. And I've always had, within everything I've done with my company and my businesses and the farming, I've always had apprentices or people who just showed up who wanted to learn. And I know that that's part of my service in the world, is I have these gifts, I have these talents, and it's almost like my obligation of being in humanity at this time that we have to pass that on.
You know, that's interesting because a lot that people are reticent in the old paradigms to do that because there's a lack of abundance about money and fame. But when you're feeling abundant, you're feeling full, and you're feeling like you're fulfilling your destiny, you just want to share it. You want to feel love and share it, and you're feeling the love, and then you just want to share it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, part of like the sacred spaces, part of your like mosaic pieces is you take on apprentices and...
I do. I mean, I have a staff that works with me. Sometimes it's large, sometimes it's small. Sometimes a girlfriend or whoever, a friend will come along and go, wow, I've always been fascinated by this. Can I help you do this? And then I, clearly explain the parameters, like I have to get this done in this certain amount of time, or hey, we can just play with this for a while. I'm not under any time pressure. But I kind of clearly explain the way it is. And then I'll have sometimes paid interns. It all depends on what the situation is. Some of my artwork I'm not able to have apprentices or interns because there is usually time constraint, or the level of difficulty or expertise that's needed isn't suitable to that. But there's always something I usually can find for someone if someone shows up.
Yeah,
it's always amazing what
if their heart
presents
is
itself.
open and wants to serve.
Yeah.
I mean, because most of, we talk about this all the time, that right now there's an infinite, right short of infinite amount of things we could be doing and serving and sharing the love in that way. So it's just a matter of having the assets and the people and the, but there's almost no limit to how much we can do.
No, there's no limit.
With all the outlets for it and all the potential to do it.
Absolutely. And as we know, art heals. Love heals, art heals. It's that.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, you've seen, as part of the art project, these 350 odd pieces that have come in from all over the world. Like at what point are they going to be in the Museum of Modern Art to have an exhibit for healing art? In the Getty with their 400 million square feet of, and when we get to that paradigm, people will recognize the value of all this healing art in a much grander way, in a much more societal way.
In most of indigenous culture in the world, they've always taken pieces that people have made and used them for ceremony. Whether it was a mask, or it was something as simple as a rattle, or maybe it was a painting that everyone chanted or meditated around. But yeah, art is very powerful, and it's definitely been a moving, healing force in most of culture's life for all of time.
And I just remember that you were on the show early on, and you were drumming. And you were talking about, do you still do that as well in terms of ceremony and for your own sake and all?
The shamanic drumming thing that I've done since the late 70s is definitely a huge part of my life. I mean, it's the core, it's the heartbeat. And I still usually do with my meditation, maybe a drum journey, a real hardcore long hour drum journey about once a month. Sometimes I do it more often when I feel like I'm working with something I want to shift. And I worked with Angeles Arian for a long time, and Melinda Maxfield with the I Ching drumming, and Mark Pixley's amazing drums that he makes out of cottonwood and elk. And currently I have no drums, which is very interesting.
They all burn in the fire?
Yeah.
Every one of them?
Everything. Well, I lost everything.
And since then you haven't gotten a new one? That's interesting.
Yeah. Well,
and what do you,
I've been borrowing a friend's amazing drum. And I'm not sure if it's going to become my drum or not, because I've really sat with what was it about everything being, Puff the Magic Dragon, right? Gone, just like that. It was like Force Tao, right? Like it's the Tao, it's everything and it's nothing. And so, all my history, all my family's history, I'm the oldest, I was the keeper of the castle, so to speak.
So pictures, videos, books,
Poof.
Everything gone.
Poof.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So this drum that I've been borrowing, it came to me a month after the fire. One of my goddess sisters brought the drum to me. And so I've been working with that. And so I've been looking around for a drum. I've been thinking about another drum from Mark or someone, and I haven't found the right drum yet. And so I know it will come. I know it's a part of it. I've made a couple of amazing rattles. I have my click sticks. I've got some other stuff, but you know, I have a drum. It's not like I don't have a drum, but I don't really have a drum. Yeah, some of my drums I had
it's
for a
interesting.
long
Why
time.
don't you talk, because I was involved in the fire, and as I said, it was 10 feet on two sides. Why don't you talk about when you found out, what it was like and how you have had this long history of, surrender and letting go, and yet in an earthly body. Talk about that, because that's interesting for people.
Well,
Unless it's too hard to talk about. Why'd you have to ask me about that?
I can now, I mean, for a long time.
When did it exactly happen?
May of 2009.
So we're like a little over 2 years.
2.5 years, yeah.
Okay, good.
So all I can say is that I had to evacuate, my property, which is large, 5.5 acres, really quickly. And I have horses and chickens and my art studio. And luckily the kids were at school. I was on my way out to a appointment. And it was like really obvious that I went to go walk out the door, and I opened my big carved angel doors that were historic, that I found in Mexico many years ago. The fire was just pouring over the hill, right? By where I live, because I live at the very end of Jesuita Road, right? The fire couldn't have been closer, and my house was the last house to go. Anyway, I had to run and get the Suburban, hook it up to the horse trailer, get the horses, load them in the horse trailer, try to decide if I was going to close all the windows in our huge house or who was in the art studio. It was like a blur of about 55 minutes. And I tried.
You knew you had to be out in a hurry.
Yeah, it was, I mean, the sheriff was up there, the fire trucks came roaring up the driveway, and it was pretty wild, and had to go back and get the cat, had to go back and had 50 or 60 baby chicks that were like a week old. I had to throw in a couple of 5-gallon buckets. I mean, anyway, yeah, it was pretty radical. And then we left town a few days later because I'm really allergic to smoke. And we went to my sister's because we were supposed to go anyway for Mother's Day up to Northern California. Got there late at night and finally all fell asleep, I don't know. And then I think it was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, all the phones, every phone in her house went off at the same time.
And that's when you were notified.
I knew. I didn't have to listen to any of the messages. I just knew. I didn't listen to any of the messages for days. I didn't pick up the phone.
And how did you feel at that initial moment, and then coming back to the house, or coming back to what was
it didn't seem real. It was just like, it was impossible to believe, actually. And it was like I knew immediately I had to just accept what was. It was just like there wasn't.
So was surrender fairly close?
It was like a giant. Surrender was like watching the Buddhist monks take their amazing sand mandalas that they've spent all this time and love making and just going, right? That was it. I mean, I knew I could cry and grieve and I would go through all of that, but it was sort of like it was like just clear that was. What's
the point? And that was clear to you right from the get-go?
Yeah.
And did you have that feeling when you were driving up there that,
No, because I have what I would consider very powerful visionary tenant. I think about.
And you hadn't had that vision?
No, I had the property surrounded in this giant bubble, like this clear giant bubble of protection, and just was holding it and holding it and holding it. And I don't know when it got released. I'm not sure I really actually had anything to do with it. I'm sure I didn't. Whatever was going to be was going to be, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I
never saw any pictures of our house being burned.
And that was the energy and the vibration of letting go and let go, let God, pretty much the whole time. Even when you drove back and saw just ruins.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty far out, really. I mean, as humans go, not to, kind of, poor me, grieve, the things that humans do sometimes. But why don't you, in like 30 seconds, what would you want everybody to take from, the incredible gift of your life and the blessings, and, if you had one, like, message for people?
I think it would be that whatever it is that you feel inspired in you today, reflected in me, is really just that. It's that mirror thing, like the real true namaste, which is, I am the God that's reflected in you, that's reflected in me. I think that's really what it is.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. That's really lovely. All right, so we really had a beautiful show with Laurianne tonight, and we had Laurianne videos and Laurianne pictures, and and Laurianne, so we're really fortunate. So if you want any information, Alan, 805-687-2053, 805-687-2053. Good night, God bless you, thank you.